Does anybody know all the history of PLP, how that we've been around 35 years? I joined in '93. So I'm a lifer. I have a life sentence. I like to actually thank Don and Laura, our board members here tonight, for all their support and hard work. I want to say thank you. You do a lot. Appreciate you guys. And also, I want to say thank you to Valley Prospectors for your long history of support to public lands for the people. We can't do it without clubs and individual memberships. You know, it's been a long road, and I'm going to share some of our accomplishments too. Let you know what your donation, you guys just gave a big donation for PLP to get to Washington, D.C., and we appreciate that. And I have some updates for that. Before we get to the Washington, D.C. one, I have a kind of a even more exciting announcement. I know some of you already know about that, is that you know that years ago we had the dredge ban. They said it was a moratorium in 2009, and PLP sued the state of California. We had a couple of different cases going, and it was long and expensive. Some of you that are here, I think you were at those hearings in San Bernardino at the courthouse. Yeah. Well, that's like ancient history now.
What happened to that judge?
I don't know, but
he had it all written up for us, and then he turned it down.
Yeah, he said he's gonna I'll get you guys back in the water, and then we found out that he went to Sacramento and they told him different. That he had to change his ruling against us, which was disheartening to say the least. But we, as you know, 4 years ago we came out with the reclamation dredging instructions, that there's a legal pathway through the regulations where you can dredge, clean up the rivers, clean up the waterways with no permit needed. There's one for every paying member. Yeah, but a lot of naysayers said it wouldn't fly, and there's people that have gone out dredging and been cited and had to pay the fine because they didn't follow the PLP route. We have specific instructions here. We won 2 cases. We won one case in California State Court and one in federal court saying that dredging does not add any there's no addition, there's no pollutant added when you dredge. So with that in mind, we had a dredger that he was reclamating in Northern California in Siskiyou County last August. He was cited, and it finally went to court in early April or mid-April. Well, it's you know how it is with court. It's no one-day thing. You know, you come and they delay it, postpone, and then finally, though, we got a ruling from the judge, and our reclamation dredging instructions held up. He was cited and was dismissed because the judge found that he followed the law. So we're going dredging again. Reclamation dredging is the way to do it. And I want everybody, if anybody's out there dredging, follow this before you get to the water. We've had a couple people that they get their gear out and they take it down to the river, and then they call us up, hey, we're joining PLP, and oh, by the way, we just got cited. Sorry, we can't help you. It's like driving your car down the freeway on your way to the DMV to get a license, and you get pulled over for driving without a license.
Ron, does that work for high bankers as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So let me show you, or I'll read what I have a copy of the citation. He was cited for possession of motorized mining equipment within 100 yards of the water. So and let me tell you what the judge said here. They checked the box here in Superior Court, State of California, Siskiyou County. The judge checked the box. There was a change in evidence since filing. You know, once he got cited, he brought his evidence in. And the case substantially weakened. There was insufficient evidence. So it says here in the next box, the defendant has produced evidence that shows that he substantially complied with the scope of conduct allowed by Fish and Game Code Section 5653A pursuant to Section 5653.8. For purposes of Section 5653, person does not include a partnership, corporation, or other type of association. The defendant substantially complied with the requirements of Section 5653A because he was acting as an agent of a partnership. So he is back getting ready to dredge. There was a problem outside of that, there was a very, I would say, criminal type person that broke out all his windows on his van, the one that called the ranger on him. And while he was speaking with the Fish and Game warden, he was out, the other guy was out breaking his windows, and then tried to run him off the road later. So anyway, that guy's got a criminal record now. So, just wanted to let you guys know that after many years, we've got a solid win. And there's been a lot, yeah, that's worked around a lot. A lot of people have spent a lot of time and a lot of money trying to get dredgers back in the water. And when the moratorium first happened and they had all these scoping meetings and all this, I remember driving to Bakersfield or somewhere when they had one of the meetings, and Jerry Hobbs was there and Pat King and a lot of us trying to tell them how dredgers clean up the waterways and how we make it the riparian habitat better for the fish. And we told them all that, but it was already set in stone. They already knew what they were going to do regardless. These meetings were just a checkbox. So they had a path for their cronies, I would have to say, the Sierra Fund, to be able to keep dredging, because they got a $7 million grant to dredge Tecombe Reservoir. So that's how they left this path in the regulations, so we just decided to walk through it. So, and now we have a legal case that showed that our path is good. So when you decide to go, if you want to dredge, clean up the water, keep a log of what you're doing, take pictures of the trash you pick up trash, any mercury you get, take pictures of that, try and recycle it, take it to somebody that can deal with it. Just follow this card to the T. Have you print out the cases that we won. We're going to add this case that we just won last week. We're going to add that to the card and have those with you to show the warden. And that way, and that's happened quite a few times where they've just showed their information and then everything was fine. They just said, okay, that was it. Yes, you got a question?
Yeah, what did it cost this miner to go through all this?
Zero.
Zero?
When he cited, he called PLP, and Clark Pearson, our legal researcher, helped walk him through so he can get a public defender. He doesn't have to hire an attorney. And that's how we won the other two cases as well, with Osterbrink and...
No court costs or anything?
Well, there may have been some minor costs. I haven't talked to him directly, but typically no.
Was he from up there? So
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
This county, yeah.
because if we were down here, we'd have to be going up and back and forth a lot, so there would be some cost. I was just wondering,
Well, yeah, if you're doing this in Siskiyou County, you probably won't get cited now because the warden knows this decision. So they will not be writing tickets.
Dredge size. Is there a limit to dredge size?
It's, what we've been telling people is just kind of go by the 94 regs that we used to use. So just, be mindful of, what they used to have and just don't go crazy. Don't dig into the banks and all that. And
Reclamation.
exactly. And document the trash that you haul out, because we're always getting iron, lead, and, there's always fishing weights and bullets. Just take pictures of that. So, question, Larry?
Did the gentleman get his equipment back after?
He has not got his equipment back yet that we know of, and he will be suing the ranger if he doesn't get it back, personally. So.
Just to clarify, because I've kind of heard a couple of different ways on this. Now, is this only if you own a claim? Does it work the same if you're dredging on BLM or Forest Service land?
It works the same as long as you've got permission, if it's on someone else's claim or if it's open. But if it's a wild and scenic river or something, I would probably stay away from that. Where they have them designated wilderness, maybe not go
No,
there.
but there's places that we used to go dredging legally when, when they have the permits and everything, but we never had a private claim and we never owned a claim and we never had permission from any to go, so it was open land, that it wasn't wild.
Yeah, you should still be able to go there. This was kind of a fun one to report out on. It's been many, many, many years. So, and when we came out with the guide cards in 2021, everybody's been fairly timid about getting out there, but then there's been more and more and more. And now with this court win this year, I imagine this summer there'll be quite a few more. So dredge it, reclaim it, get it out. That's what we say on the card. So, and speaking of that, when you're a PLP member, we also give you these suggested challenge procedure cards. You've probably all seen these. We've had them forever. So when you're out there pursuing your outdoor activity, it doesn't necessarily even have to be mining. If you're hunting, fishing, or just hiking, do this. If you're stopped by a warden or somebody, ask politely if you're breaking any laws. If you're informed that you're breaking the law, then ask for an explanation of the law and any other code that may pertain to the law. And you might, and if you get a good response, that's great. We've heard of, and then get their name, badge number, agency, district, their position, date, time. And now, this was made long before cell phones. Now that you have a cell phone, it's a good idea to record the conversation. But we've heard of people getting out their challenge cards and they just say, "Have a nice day." They don't even want to go through this, filling these out. So carry those with you. And then we have a newer card too we haven't had that many years. Clark keeps coming up with new updates, so we made a whole new card. This is the green card for Forest Service issues. So if you have access issues on national forest land, we've got some remedies right here.
Oh, that's good.
So step one for the remedies is go to the PLP website, publiclandsforthepeople.org. Look for accomplishments, and then under Public Lands for the People, and download and print U.S. versus Hicks mining claimant is a landowner. So you don't know that. Typically, miners don't know that they actually have landowner rights, because when you have a mining claim, as you mentioned earlier, some counties charge property tax on that. So you go into court with your property tax bill, and you have rights that the fishermen or the hunters don't have. So if you don't exercise your rights, you don't have any. So we're here to help educate you on your rights.
Yeah, I was really surprised with Sierra County. They even charged us a trash bill on one of our claims.
Oh, wow.
I don't know why they did.
So anyway, with this Forest Service access issues, there's some other documents here that tells you to download and print off of our website, so that'd be good to have.
Ron, one item we have is we have a plan of operation on our claims in Northern California. And we submitted some new plans, but they've never, ever come back with an approval. So my understanding is we're still operating under the old plan of operations.
That's a good one for Clark. I know there's times when there's situations where you can submit your plan, and if you don't get a response within 30 days, you can just go ahead.
Right,
But I would check with him
okay,
county by county.
I'll check with them.
He
I mean,
knows-
we've been very fortunate that up at Sierra County, they've still been very supportive of us. And one of our claims allows us to actually camp on it, and they do provide us with the parking permits to allow us to camp on our claim,
You
so.
don't need a permit to camp on your claim. You're
Well-
the mining, you have the mining rights when you're working your
It's in the
claim.
park, though.
It's-
I know it's hard.
It's,
but
it's in the actual Union Flat campground,
Oh,
so we've been using those parking permits as
So that you don't have to pay the
designation.
fee.
Yeah,
oh, gotcha.
yeah, so,
Okay, I know it can get kind of touchy.
it is. They've at least still allowed us to do it, so.
Right. Well, as you know, we had a big fundraiser this year to we had Jan Higdon and Clark Pearson went to Washington DC about a month ago. They actually went to, how many, 65 separate meetings they held in a week. They were just running ragged. You know, they worked hard, they did hard. I'll read a little bit. This is a newsletter. If you can't afford to join PLP, at least go to the website and sign up for the newsletter so you can stay informed. And we put these out. We try to get it out at least once a month. Sometimes we lag, but sometimes we get them out twice a month. So I'll just read through this real quick. I normally don't just read, but I don't want to miss anything important, so I'll kind of skim through. Like I mentioned, PLP legal researchers Jan Higdon and Clark Pearson spent the first week of April in Washington, D.C. and held 65 separate meetings. They met with Associate Deputy Secretary Karen Bud Fallon of the Department of Interior, White House staff member Carolee Geis, Senate Energy and Natural Resource Committee, Mike Lee of Utah is the chairman, they got in there. Sam Crofts, Policy Director, Ken Klukowski, Deputy General Counsel, David Gardner, Public Lands Professional Staff, Rob McGregor, Mining Subcommittee Staff Director, Representative Pete Stauber, Chairman of the Mining Subcommittee. I'm butchering these names, I'm sure. Sean Rusterholz, Public Lands Legislative Staffer, and Rory Burke, Chief of Staff for Representative Lauren Bobert. They distributed and solicited for sponsorship nearly all the majority members of the House and Senate Natural Resource Committee members and nearly all the majority members of the House and Senate Armed Services Committee. Jan Higdon focused on Congressman Fulcher's office as the lead editor and former legislative director and working with National Defense Authorization Act legislative format writers within Senator Crapo's office. Senator Risch's office from Idaho, his staffer says that the senator will most likely get on board with the added approval of the American Exploration and Mining Association's endorsement of our proposed legislation. Now, if you haven't heard our legislation that we've been working on, we were working on during Trump 1 era, and then it got a 4-year pause because we couldn't get anywhere in the last 4 years, and now we're ramping up again, to roll back duplicative regulations for small miners and big miners as far as that goes, and to break loose the log jam of permitting and things. And you can see from a lot of what's going on, that's kind of happening along with what we're doing. It's kind of all happening. I think the window's open right now to get this done. And when Clark was in a lot of these meetings, some of them had our information already and they remember them from before. So that was really good. And they said, oh, this is really great. It's very simple changes to certain regulations. It's just like surgical. Like a paragraph here and there. Clark's done research to where it's not huge changes of legislation, it's just here and there. And the goal is to get it into the National Defense Authorization Act by the end of this year. So right now it's stuck with the American Exploration and Mining Association. They have to give their approval to let it keep going before we can get full sponsorship from some of these senators. For some reason, they said, well, the AEMA needs to say, give it a thumbs up. So that's where it's at right now. It's on somebody's desk over there. So if you guys can just, if we can find out whose desk it's on, we'll make ourselves nuisances. Senator Lee's office, as they have in the past, encouraged our proposed bill to be approved out of the Resources Committee for final formatting into the Armed Services Committee for passage into law. Jan Higdon is following up with the AEMA, like I mentioned, before getting back to her. Senator Risch, Crapo, and Congressman Fulcher's legislative staffers all were positive, or had positive feedback. And also Pearson's meeting with Associate Deputy Secretary Karen Budd Fallon of the Department of the Interior pressed the need to cut the strings of prohibited state regulations impeding miners, allowing miners to use existing roads without a plan of operation to access their claims, and strip the plan of operation requirements of ACEC designations because federal law does not require those regulatory actions. So as you guys know, with your claims out in the desert, we're always fighting those ACEC issues because they just decide everything's ACEC. And just, I don't know how they come up with it other than they just want to do it. They want to keep us out of there. So let's see, the other items that they discussed in DC was the legality of Biden's use of the auto pen for monuments like Chuckwalla, reopening access to critical minerals, and various points of PLP's list of solutions within our proposed critical minerals legislation. So as you guys know, I don't know if you remember, some of you may have been there. I know certainly Laura was there, and I was there last June when they had the big hearing in Indio on the Chuckwalla. BLM was out there, the heads of BLM from DC, and they were out there getting the public input, which when we got there we realized that it was a setup, that the other side had known about this meeting for quite a long time, and we just got wind of it less than a week before. And so we were outnumbered about 700 to about 15 miners there. Wow. First class miners had a pretty good showing there. So they're always good with this stuff. And they chose who was going to speak. They gave the civic leaders and the Indian leaders and different elected officials like 4 minutes each to talk. And then normally they would give the public 3 minutes to talk, but they cut us down to 2 minutes, and then they didn't pick everybody to talk. I was able to talk, Laura was able to talk. I held up my cell phone and I said, you guys don't like mining, but there's a hole in the ground somewhere that this came from. You gotta dig it up somewhere. And if it's dug up here in California or in the United States, it's done a lot cleaner than if it's done in China. There's a lot less pollution. Anyway, that was how that went there, but eventually it became, as you know, like 5 minutes before Biden left office, it was signed into law. And it's not done yet. We haven't given up. There's been a lawsuit filed. There's a miner that has claims out there, and there's the Blue Ribbon Coalition. We've been working with them. They have filed a lawsuit to try and reverse the Chuckwalla monument. That's 624,000 acres that they've locked up. I know the owners at Chiriaco Summit, did I say that? Chiriaco Summit? Chiriaco, sorry. They've worked tirelessly to try and stop the monument. So it was on the list of Trump's executive orders to get reversed a few weeks ago, and then somehow it didn't get signed, so we're not sure what happened.
What's going on with St. Gabriel River?
Don't know.
No?
I know
Obama got that closed.
I know Obama closed a lot of that over there. It's hard to fight that when they misuse the 1906 Antiquities Act. And then there's legislation being proposed now to either revoke that or to restrict it to where it has to go through Congress. The president can't just sign it off. Because its original intent was to have the smallest area possible to preserve some historical object, not just the land, but an object. So there, I think the first one was just a few acres. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it wasn't that big. And then they did the Grand Canyon. I can understand that, you know. But to have a whole swath of Southern California, and they've done that multiple times here, and they're trying to do that in the Sierras. They're trying to get a big one up there. Get most of the Sierras. That's like another almost 1 million acres. So we're working to help keep that from happening again, to keep the Antiquities Act from being abused. I wrote an article for the Epic Times opinion piece, and actually published it right before Biden signed that, and it actually got a lot of help get traction against the Antiquities Act. I mean, we're all about preserving history and everything, and I know as miners we're very good stewards of the land, and even before all this came up, we usually always haul out more trash than what we bring. So we always leave it better than we found it. That's a good rule. But as, I know there was a question on the East Fork.
What was the cost of PLP?
It's 75 for a single, 100 for a family, and $5 extra if you want a T-shirt, just paying for postage. And then I know a lot of the clubs are members, but that's helpful, but it doesn't really keep us going. I mean, we're all volunteers. I don't get paid. But we do have to pay for our legal research, and we have, you know, there's cost. You know, as a club, there's cost just to kind of keep your website up, your telephone, whatever. So when all the individual miners are members too, then it really helps us be strong and not have to worry, are we going to make it through next month? We've definitely scraped the bottom of the barrel more than one time. So, but I do, speaking of the Chuck Wall, I just got to give a shout out to Greg Herring. He took point on that fight, and he hasn't given up yet. He's been meeting with the Blue Ribbon Coalition as well. And he did a great job. It's been 2 years on that. But we actually, and that's kind of short compared to the dredge fight we started in '09. So that's been a while. A lot of the guys that started in that fight aren't with us anymore, but we carry on. So speaking of the East Fork you brought up, you know, that's kind of where PLP started. Jerry Hobbs had his gold shop there on Azusa Avenue. A lot of you might probably remember that back in the day. And we started with the dealing with the Forest Service there, and had a pretty good rapport with them. We did the canyon sweep cleanups every year. And, you know, as fast as PLP and their volunteers haul trash out, you see all the other people hauling it back down to the river. It's kind of disappointing and disheartening. But I just want to, that was probably in the 90s. You know, PLP started in 1990, 35 years ago. And the last time I think the sweep happened was around 2015 or so. And Forest Service told us we couldn't do it after that. They were going to have their employees do it.
Well, thank you so
All right.
much for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you guys, appreciate it. Thanks for having me.